Hi, welcome back to the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm an emotionologist. And I'm so grateful that you are joining me on this journey to find the one emotion that can't be counterfeited, and that's peace. And today I am super excited because I've got another Curtis in the studio, Curtis Bennett. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited for this conversation because this topic brings so much light into the world. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today is that of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
So Curtis has been, very professionally successful, but also on top of that, were you the founder with Cause of the One Kind Act a Day?
No, Khosrow Simnani was the one who really decided that something needed to be done. And he was the one that launched this and then got me engaged some period of time afterwards. And really, it's been a privilege and an honor to be associated with something like this.
Yeah. And just the premise of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had long, deep discussions about the dyad of kind versus nice, mm-hmm. and how that plays. But I truly believe that this is one of the most important things in our world right now is kindness. And it goes from conversations like this to our home life, to what we do in schools, what we do globally. It plays into politics. It plays into so many key aspects of life. I don't think there's anything that kindness doesn't reach.
We often say that kindness is a constant companion to so many other important values that we need to make sure that we're not only promoting, but we're emulating. So if we're talking about integrity, kindness is there. If we're talking about love, kindness is there. If we're talking about honesty, kindness is there. If we're talking about common respect, kindness is there. Whether it's hand in hand or within arm's reach, with all of those values and so many more, kindness is going to be right there, which is why it's important. I think when Khosrow Simnani decided that he wanted to do this, I don't know that he intentionally knew that this was going to be the case. I think he accidentally stumbled on the whole idea that kindness is really something that it accompanies everything, and it needs to be there with everything. So,
yeah, and it brings with it light.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking before
Right.
the episode of the Kindness Summit, the yearly summit on kindness. Mm-hmm. And it is becoming one of my favorite conferences because there's so much light. There's so much goodness. There's so much acceptance and love that is part of the conference that really brings out the importance of why kindness is critical in today's world.
So one of the things that a lot of people worried about when we proposed the whole concept of a kindness summit was, well, it wasn't that we hold it, or it wasn't that we were going to hold it where we did or in the city that we did. It was, how in the world are you going to talk about kindness for 6 or 7 hours? It's just impossible. There's just no way. But you said it. It's in our politics. It's in our business. It's in our schools. It's in our communities, and we hope that kindness is going to permeate to the home. And so when we start to talk about kindness and all of those different spheres of influence, you are looking at your watch and you're wondering, how in the world did those 6 hours fly by like that? And because the feedback that we get consistently on the summit is that people were just riveted to the presentations that were given on these various areas of influence, where kindness really needs to be a significant factor, and as a part of the ongoing and everlasting equation.
Yeah, and kindness is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
People think of it as soft, but kindness is so powerful because it transforms.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we're learning, and you're going to get to go with us to the prison here in a couple of days and teach a group of inmates who have completed the Kindness Matters course. we've learned through this experience that kindness can be taught anywhere,
Mhm.
and it belongs everywhere. So even in a prison, when we talk about this prison initiative that we have going on, a lot of people raise their eyebrows and say, how in the world are you teaching kindness in a prison? And our perception of what's going on in a prison is often influenced mostly by what we see in Hollywood, what the media portrays. And when you go into the facility, you're going to find that there are really good people in there that messed up.
Yeah.
And they made a mistake, and the mistake cost them dearly, and they don't want their lives to be determined by that mistake that they made however long ago it was. And while they're in that facility, they are doing what they can do to improve their lives so that when they do get out, they don't fall back into or default back into a previous lifestyle that only brought them misery to begin with. And they're finding that the Kindness Matters class that we're teaching is a phenomenal way to create a culture within a system that isn't viewed as kind, knowing that when they go out into the world, that system oftentimes is not viewed as kind. And so if they can do it there, then they are more likely going to be able to do it out there when they are released back into society. So again, kindness can be taught anywhere, and it belongs everywhere.
Yeah. And I think one of the key things you hinted around it that is at the heart of kindness is removing the judgment, removing the idea that there's such a thing as a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to say, oh, look at all these inmates. They're all these bad people that did this bad stuff. And removing that concept that there is no such thing as a bad person allows us to see them in their truth, see them for the divine being that they are, that they have worth regardless of their situation. Yeah, they made mistakes, some of them pretty horrible mistakes. But that doesn't mean that they themselves are a bad person. And when we start with that premise that there is no such thing as a bad person, kindness happens naturally. Kindness flows from that idea that the person in prison is just the same as me, that has so many hard things that happen in their lives.
Which is why I'm really excited for you to come out and share that message and other messages with them in the coming days, because many, many times what most of these inmates are feeling, men and women, is wholly dehumanized.
Yes.
They've been placed in one of the things we try to help them remember, this is called the Department of Corrections. It's not the Department of Punishment. It's not the Department of Dehumanization. It's not the Department of let's get him out of the way, him or her out of the way. This is the Department of Corrections. And there's probably even a better word that we could find for this. But what the hope is that we can correct behavior and we can correct things so that we can put them on a trajectory that really speaks to, as you say, the kind person that they really are innately, even though they may have gotten off track for a period of time. I believe that kindness is one of the best ways to rehumanize an individual, because when a person is viewed for the kindness that they perform, they're seen. And when they're seen, they're humanized. Mm-hmm. And it rehumanizes as well, because as a human being, when I call out the kindness of another individual and I see somebody doing something, I'm humanized again, and I get to participate not only in that rehumanization. I don't even know if that's a word, but
it is now.
It is now that rehumanization. But I feel rehumanized as well, because I was able to be a part of that experience, however little or however great it might have been. I got to be a part of that, and so my humanity is coming back. And so we're really seeing some amazing and really transformative experiences out there, not only in the prison, but also with the youth, the juvenile justice youth services. And but we're seeing great experiences with corporations and schools, cities and counties. It's really, as you said, transformative.
Yeah. And I went up to the prison, what was it, about 5 or 6 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
with a group that was looking at ways to better create processes that would help the inmates. And I'm sure you're familiar with the SOLID program.
Yes.
Of there, the
Mm-hmm.
inmate-led program. This is for inmates by inmates, created completely within the walls of the prison, which is amazing and fantastic. And they had an award ceremony, and I was standing off to the side, and there was a guy there, completely shaved head. He had these satanic horns on, tattooed. His entire head was tattooed. These horns. He had some satanic symbols. He had the swastika on the back of his head. This is a guy you don't want to meet in a dark alley, right? and 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 they gave him an award, and I saw the tears well up in his eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw hope in him. I saw this incredible human that from the outside you would think, oh man, this is quote unquote a bad guy. And I saw him receive this award that said he was human,
Mm-hmm.
that he was good,
Mm-hmm.
that he had achieved something great. And this may have been the first time in his whole life he's ever been told that. And the true joy, the true hope, the amount of excitement that he felt, like his tears just flowed, and my tears flowed, because I saw him. I saw him for who he really is, not for the mistakes he made, but for who he really is.
We talk about this when we're with the inmates, that if we were all going to be judged on our worst day, we're all in a world of hurt.
Right. I don't want anyone to judge me for that.
Not on my worst day. And we talk about one of my biology teachers way back in high school. He had this practice. He would take your worst score and just throw it away. And throughout the course of the year, understanding that your worst score isn't who you are. And so he would take that worst score and he'd just throw it away. And so, these guys are still beating themselves up. In many respects, they're dehumanizing themselves because they beat themselves up based on that worst day, based on that day that got them into where they're at now. And so when you talk about hope, I'll go back to kindness again. Kindness, I think, is a great way to humanize. But I also think kindness is a great way to give hope. And when people feel that kindness coming from another person, they start to feel maybe there is hope for me. Maybe there is an opportunity for me. Maybe I don't have to keep going down the same path. Maybe there are other options for me. And so I'm glad you were there to experience that. That prisoner-led program, that SOLID program, I think is inspired.
Yeah.
And then I also think that the department is very, very wise for embracing it and allowing it to happen, because they couldn't have done it unless the departments thought or saw that there was value to this. We wouldn't be there without the SOLID program. If it weren't for the SOLID program, some of the other pro-social programs that are available in the prison, in the facility, are there only because the SOLID program kind of paved the way, kind of plowed the fields.
Yeah. And it's so inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
It's so inspirational that they didn't go to prison and give up. They said, you know what, we made mistakes, and we're going to learn, we're going to grow, we're going to become better so we can try again. And yeah, it's so beautiful.
So when we approach some schools and they say, no, this fifth grade class, there's no way we're ever going to be able to change them. Or we go to, business and they say, no, there's no way that we're going to be able to change them. Listen, if we can get this done in a place, in a facility like this, and see some of the transformative results, then it can, like I said, kindness can be taught anywhere. It can really be taught anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes me back to my days of scouting. I was scoutmaster for quite a few years, and one of my scouts, his name was Carter, and he was described as a holy terror. He literally, there were school teachers that quit because of Carter, and and yeah, we had a camp out, or a week-long camp down in Schofield.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about the situation? And there was a school teacher that happened to be in our local church that Carter was in her class. And so, after our first meeting, I went over and talked to her, and I said, hey, do you have any advice about Carter? And she lit up, and the expression on her face was like, isn't he wonderful? And I'm like, wait a minute. We're talking about the same Carter? And she could tell the expression on my face, because I just sat there dumbfounded looking at her like, I'm not sure we're having the same conversation. And she said, isn't he wonderful? And after a minute, she goes, can I tell you about Carter? And I said, yeah, I would love to know about Carter. And she said, Carter comes to my class early every day. He sits on the front row. He hands out papers for me. He helps other kids. And this is the same kid that, like, days before, I'm hearing reports to the exact opposite. And I said, wait, this can't be the same kid. How does he do all of these things in your class? And she said, because I see him.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in him. And when I started to believe in him, he started to believe in himself.
Mm-hmm.
And the reports came back that he was still the holy terror in the other classes, but in her class, he started to believe in himself. And we had this contest, this award for the scout that showed the most bravery, the most courage, but also the most kindness. And I pulled Carter aside before we went on this camp, and I said, Carter, I really think that you could win this award. And he looked at me, first questioning, like, okay, what's going on here? What trick is happening with this? And I pulled him aside, and I said, I see this in you. I see kindness in you. And it was amazing, because the kids, the other scouts, got to vote for who was it was the Sons of Helaman Award, this Stripling Warrior is what it was called. And he went above and beyond that week. Like, I have never seen a scout do the things that Carter did that week. There's a little island that we had to canoe out to, and we camped on this island, and Carter was like, let me take the honey bucket. And all the other kids were like, no, that's so gross. And Carter he was the one volunteering for it. He was the one that got up early and helped people. And the Carter I saw during that week, he was that stripling warrior. He was that amazing kid. And it was because he was seen, because he was believed in, because he started to have hope.
So what you're talking about there is, first of all, kudos to you and to that teacher for being willing to even consult with one another about a young man who, in many respects and by many people, is viewed as a holy terror, quote unquote. We talk about how kindness draws large circles of inclusion. But in addition to that, kindness looks for people that people stop looking for. And kindness sees people that most people don't see. And so what you did...
I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that.
So what you did was you were looking for somebody that people stopped looking for. And you saw someone that... most people just didn't see. You and that math teacher saw him and saw his potential. And I'll wager I could talk to virtually 99.999% of the population in the world and say, was there a time when you felt like somebody reached out to you because they saw you and they were looking for you when no one else was or saw you? And I can identify half a dozen or a dozen people that probably hit me in those times in my life when I felt unseen or that no one was even looking, for that matter. And they came at pivotal times. So kindness looks for people that a lot of people aren't looking for and sees them when most people don't. So,
Yeah.
So kudos to you and the teacher for being willing to do that.
It was amazing to see his light shine.
Yeah.
It was amazing to see how great a kid he really was.
Yeah.
And all of the kids voted. They're like, it was unanimous that Carter was the one to win the award. And it was an amazing experience. So how do we, with a world that's so divided today, with a world that is, we've got political parties, we've got countries at war, we've got, ideologies, we've got all of these divisive things. How do we bring kindness to the world? I know that you are having a major impact, and the One Kind Act a Day Foundation is having a major impact on this. How do we bring kindness to the world?
So, again, when Khosrow was putting this all together, and it's thanks to him and the Semnani Family Foundation that we even have this organization, he kind of lit on the idea of one kind act a day. And is it really just one kind act? Or is it just being deliberate in my acts of kindness? Or is it being deliberate in the idea that on a daily basis, I want to make sure that I'm an advocate for, I'm an amplifier for, I'm an example for kindness? And those three things I think are very important. Can I advocate for it? Can I exemplify it? Can I advocate, exemplify, and amplify, the whole concept of kindness? And that's what we're really after. It's interesting that we talk about kindness on a lot of different levels. And one of the levels that I think is most important is that oftentimes we'll see a kindness and we'll say thank you and we'll move on. We just move on. But how do we get kindness to live on? And the best way to get kindness to live on is, and most of us think that we just don't have the time to do this, when the fact of the matter is it takes very little time to accomplish this. All it requires is for me to take a pause, just stop for a second, and recognize the kindness that someone did, and then celebrate it. For example, Curtis, I just want to take a pause, and I want to recognize your kindness to Carter. That was phenomenal what you did for him and what you were striving to accomplish. And I just want to celebrate that by recognizing the good that you did and the good that you made in his life, and probably the good that it had in your life. So when we just stop for a second, recognize, and then celebrate, the likelihood of those kindnesses living on are so much higher than just thank you, have a good day, and move on. Because that's what most of us do on a routine basis. It's kind of our default. Okay, thank you is good enough. When candidly, when in the divisive world that we live in, with the challenges that we're dealing with the frustration and even contempt and anger that is out there, we don't have the luxury anymore of just being able to say thank you and moving on. We've got to be deliberate. We've got to be willing to stop for a second, recognize that kindness, and celebrate that kindness in some short and small way. We obviously are supportive of things like the Dignity Index. Mm-hmm. We're supportive of Disagree Better by the Utah governor on that whole concept, and we're also very supportive of the whole concept, like with Ibu Patel and Interfaith America, on creating an interfaith dialogue that recognizes there are differences, recognizes there are significant differences in the way I believe or in the way that you believe. And it's not necessarily the differences that causes the problem. It's the drama that we inject into the dialogue that causes the problem. Yeah. I can disagree vociferously with somebody on things like the wall or abortion or taxes or whatever it might be, but I don't have to be disrespectful. I don't have to be unkind. I don't have to get angry. Those are emotions that I can choose. If I can eliminate that, we can have very healthy conversations that will be productive and will move us to greater heights that I don't think we've yet explored, if we can just get people to move past the drama. And that's the challenge right now. The commotion and the anger and pitting one against another, or creating this whole concept that if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. We've got to get out of that.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. And one of my favorite parts of the Kindness Summit 2 years ago was the interfaith panel. Mm-hmm. It was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. It had an elder from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It had the Archbishop
from Santa Fe, John Wester. We had Imam Dawood Yassin from the Greater Austin Islamic Center, Bishop Phyllis Spiegel from the Episcopal Diocese, and Rabbi Samuel Spector from the Kolomia Synagogue here in Salt Lake City. We wanted to bring that diverse group. And even if people want to go to the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, and watch that interaction, even they were starting to realize in the course of their conversation that there was this commonality, there was this common denominator that existed, that they were seeing manifest itself as they were having their conversation. And I think Bishop Spiegel said it really, really well. She said, kindness is one of God's most important common denominators. Mm-hmm. It's the lowest bar there is, yet it's one of the hardest ones to achieve. And she's absolutely right. It is a common denominator. And here's something that somebody recommended to us. They said, when you bring another group like that, they asked it this way: do you have the courage to bring an atheist on? And I thought, well, yes, I've got the courage to bring an atheist on, because I'm confident that an atheist will also see that there's a commonality in their belief structure that says kindness belongs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Whether I believe in God, whether I believe in a higher power or not, it doesn't matter, because the common denominator in our humanity is that kindness belongs. It's part of the equation. It always belongs.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I noticed was there was so much respect mm-hmm. and lack of judgment. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about some very, very different religions, and all of them are trying to do good.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
And the respect and just being able to see, you know what, you're trying to do good just like I'm trying to do good. And you're doing it in a different way. And that's okay. And not only is it okay, but I can respect and I can honor what you're doing, because you are trying to do good. And one thing that I noticed was there was so much gratitude back and forth on the panel. There was so much gratitude. And that kind of hits on what you were saying earlier, that how do we perpetuate kindness? We add gratitude. Mm-hmm. How we recognize, and the neuroscience on this is fascinating, because when someone does a kind act, and they've done this with MRI studies mm-hmm. and fMRI and all sorts of different things, that when they actually do a kind act, that their brain activates in very happy ways.
Yeah.
And when someone receives it, they also have that same lift in mood and general demeanor. And this was fascinating, that when someone observes it, they also get mm-hmm. it. They don't even have to be part of the act. All they have to do is see it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden they feel that lift in their life. and adding the gratitude to it is, I think, that last piece is that recognition, seeing it, promoting it, sharing it, that kindness can proliferate throughout the world, one kind act a day.
So we talk about gratitude an awful lot, that grateful people are kinder people and kinder people are grateful people. That's just all there is to it. As we find those reasons in our lives to be grateful, we find it far easier to be kinder. And as we are kinder, we find that there are more things to be grateful for. So you're absolutely correct. And what's really interesting, as you see those studies, I can either perform the kindness, I can receive the kindness, or I can just observe it.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotions are very much the same. We often pose the question, when a person is diagnosed with high blood pressure and they go to their doctor and the doctor says, hey, Curtis, here's what you need to do. You need to reduce the stress in your life. You need to get some exercise. You need to get some better sleep. You need to cut out the salts. You probably ought to cut out some of the fatty meats. And here's a medication that we want you to take. Okay. And that's going to help reduce your blood pressure. And then it stops. But the research, as you suggest, says again and again and again and again and again that if I will add kindness, if I will add deliberate kindness into my life, then those physiological benefits that will occur in my life are almost as powerful as all of the other things combined that the doctor just prescribed. But when was the last time that a doctor said, and oh, by the way, you really ought to add some kindness into your life?
He wrote out the prescription.
Yeah, here's the prescription. Hey, you need
serve, be kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't do it. But that's one of the best ways to ward off anxiety. That's one of the best ways to ward off depression. It's one of the best ways to lower hypertension, lower blood pressure. It's one of the best ways out there, and it's medically proven, but we're not talking about it. We don't talk about it in the ways that we should.
Yeah. And I love the tie between kindness and gratitude. You said it so well. Yeah. There's actually a Harvard study on the effect of gratitude. And before I get into the study, I really think that gratitude is simply the recognition of kindness. That when I'm grateful for something, I'm grateful for the kindness it is in my life. And the study showed that that when we're grateful, that we have, well, on the low end, if we simply just write out the gratitude, we don't speak it, nothing else, we just write out the gratitude, there's a boost of about a 4% boost in our happiness, which is significant. 4% is a pretty big boost, especially for a 3-minute activity. Yeah. You write out 3 things you're grateful for. And then one piece that I've added to that is the because. And Randy Sparks, the Sparks of Gratitude. Yeah. I absolutely love Randy. Yeah. And we've had this conversation several times, but the magic happens after the because. I'm grateful for Curtis Bennett because he's spreading kindness and he's changing the world. Notice how that feels. Yeah. If I were just to say, I'm grateful for Curtis Bennett, period, that's great. Mm-hmm. But the magic happens after the because. And it's because I recognize the kindness that you are in my life, the kindness you are in other people's lives, the kindness you are in the world. And that magic happens when using that formula, the happiness goes up more. Then, if I remember correctly, is about 12%. So 4% all the way to 12% if you add the because.
Wow. I'll have to remember this. This is great.
And then the final step is expressing it. The expression of that gratitude, whether or not you pick up your phone and you text somebody, you call somebody, you send them an email, you send them a letter or a handwritten note, the boost goes to 20%.
Wow.
20% increase in happiness. And I don't know any medication out there that can do that. There is no drug that can give you that 20% happiness with a 3-minute activity.
So I'd love for you to be able to share this when you go out to the prison, because we use a gratitude journal. It's part of our routine with the inmates. It's a morning and evening exercise, and we derived this from Chester Elton and his. He wrote a great book, a best-selling book called Leading with Gratitude, and then he created this gratitude journal that he incorporated as part of that, and then he allowed us to take that and reskin it and rebrand it so that we could use it for the prison. It's called the One Kind Act a Day Gratitude Journal, but I'd love for you to take a look at it, but share this message with these guys because they'll love to hear this. This is great research, and I'd even love to see that study because
I'm happy to share it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's amazing.
I did not know that. Yeah.
3 to 5 minutes of your day, and you can instantly get a 20% boost to your happiness.
Wow.
And I don't know any drug or any program or anything that can do that.
No side effects, no disclaimers, no fast talk, no, you're not
going to grow a third arm.
You don't have to worry about, cardiac arrest or anything like that. It's just, it has no side effects. That's the one thing about gratitude, kindness, integrity, honesty. There are no side effects except for really good physiological ones that really add and boost to our quality of life.
Yeah. And it's amazing because gratitude is the recognition of kindness.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, that feels good too.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. It's amazing. And going back to the previous conversation of, okay, how do we spread this in the world? Because there's so much divisiveness. I think you nailed it, that when we dehumanize, it's almost impossible to be kind. And you look back in history, you look at what happened in World War II when the Germans started producing pamphlets, and the wording they used in the pamphlets to describe the Jews. When the Nazis described the Jews, they said words like cockroach. They stripped their humanity out.
Yeah.
They used, if I remember correctly, it was weasel and cockroach and these things that you think are despicable. They pulled their humanity out and said, now they're just an object. They're nothing more than an object. And it's easy to step on a cockroach. It is. And so going back to humanizing, and we've had the conversation about kind versus nice, and how kind is the virtue and nice is nothing more than a defense mechanism to avoid conflict. Well, there's this pendulum, because oftentimes in life, and I think back to the prisoners, or the inmates, that you've got this pendulum, and on one side of the pendulum is nice, is, okay, I'm going to be the nice guy, which means I'm not going to speak truth. I'm going to placate. I'm going to be the doormat. I'm going to be the yes man. Whatever you say, I'm going to change who I am to match what you're saying. And then on the other side of the pendulum, when the ball swings, we get anger. So we've got nice and we've got mean, but when that pendulum stops swinging and there's no more mood swings, that's where we find kind. And we think that nice is the virtue, but it's not. That kind is the virtue. But then if we look at anger is actually the counterfeit of advocacy. And anger is a counterfeit emotion. And yet it's a very important emotion because it says there's some action that needs to be taken. And we can either do that in wrath and hatred and divisiveness and start calling names and saying people are cockroaches and weasels and all of these things, or we can do it in advocacy, where when something harmful happens to us, it's easy to get angry. It's so easy just to be like, oh, I've got to fight back. But the beautiful thing about advocacy, it comes from the word advocare, which means to call in, where anger says to fight against, and hate and all these things, advocacy says to call in. And you can't actually use the word advocate and against in the same sentence. It's grammatically incorrect. You can only use advocate for. And because advocacy is so powerful, it's really important to tap into that emotion and let anger go, because anger is the messenger. Advocacy is the action. Anger says, I'm feeling something is wrong. I'm feeling something is unjust. I'm feeling like there's maybe danger. And because of that, I need to act, which is great because it's motivating, it's energizing. You get adrenaline, you get all of these things. But instead of acting in wrath, instead of acting in hatred, instead of dehumanizing, we can say, I can advocate. And I don't have to fall into the trap of anger. Instead, I can advocate.
We have this beautiful story of this. I love what you're saying. And again, I hope you share this with some of the inmates there. We have this beautiful story from one of the inmates. We've got this practice where if an inmate observes a kindness or receives a kindness, there's a business card that says caught being kind.
Mm.
And they write their name on it, and then they hand it to their fellow inmate or whoever it was that they received a kindness from or they observed a kindness from. They're even giving them to the officers. They're giving them to the volunteers.
Oh, that's so great.
And we're creating this incredible new culture where inmates are recognizing one another and they're recognizing other people. Even the inmates are sending them to their families, these cards, and saying, hey, we're doing this in the prison. I want you to do this in the family, or I want you to do this among your friends. Anyway, when they receive 10 of these cards, if an inmate receives 10, then we send a note, a letter, to whoever they want us to send the letter to. Okay. And the letter essentially states, your friend, your loved one is taking part of a Kindness Matters class, trying to change the culture within the prison. They've been recognized by their peers as being someone who's particularly kind. We wanted you to be aware. And then we send them one of our kindness coins that's framed in a little shadow box as a tangible reminder of the good that their loved one is performing in the prison. More often than not, the letter, when they get the 10 cards, they want the letter to go to their family, a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister. But sometimes it goes to the basketball coach, who's an important mentor. It goes to their math teacher. It goes to whoever they ask us to, and we send them. Well, we've got this beautiful story of this one man. The coin came, and his son struggles with anger, as you're talking about anger issues. Because what I think I hear you saying is that we need to channel that anger, which is okay to do, in positive ways, right? And so he's got this 8-year-old son who's got anger issues. And the son said, we've got this coin. He said, I'm going to put it up in my bedroom. He said, no, I want you to carry it with you. So the inmate is telling his son, carry this coin with you. And when you feel angry, I want you to reach inside your pocket. I want you to grab that coin, and I want you to squeeze it as hard as you can and transfer all that anger into that coin. Just transfer it all. And then put it back in your pocket. And then tell me next week how you're doing. And the son, in his phone call in the following week, says, Dad, it's working. It's working. It's helping me. I don't get angry so much anymore. And at least I know and it's gone for now a couple of weeks. The coin is still in his pocket, but oftentimes he doesn't need to even get it out and squeeze it anymore because he just knows it's there, and he knows that this is the exercise I'm going to put myself through. I need to channel this. And they're having great results as a result of this kindness initiative that we're doing in the prison. But again, I'm going back to the anger. I've often thought that if I can just channel that anger positively, then maybe I can make something good out of it. I don't have to be negative towards it. I don't have to create all the drama. So
yeah, and one thing I found with my research in counterfeit emotions is that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. And we often think, bad, anger's bad.
Yeah.
Well,
frustration's bad, anger's bad.
Yeah. Shame is bad. And all of those are counterfeits, right? But the fact is that every emotion brings us a message. And if we release the judgment of, I'm feeling angry, well, then that's a bad emotion. Maybe I'm bad. We release that judgment on the emotion. We just say, you know what? I can just witness this. I can say, hello, anger. we've gone the rounds.
Mm-hmm.
We know each other.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize you. Help me understand what message you're bringing to me. And every counterfeit emotion points to the authentic. So when we feel anger, we can recognize that. We can feel the adrenaline in our body. We can feel all of that. And we can say, okay, now I know what message that I'm seeing, whether that's a boundary has been crossed or an injustice has happened or whatever that is. We can say, great, now I'm going to go over to the authentic. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to go to the authentic, and I'm going to make a change. Because anger tears down.
Mm-hmm.
Advocacy builds up. But it's the same flow. It's the same flow of emotion that I'm not going to advocate for something unless I've already felt the injustice of it. And I know that I need to go to that place. And so that flow, if we can just channel that and not say, okay, anger is this bad thing. No, anger is a messenger. And it's actually helping me get to the advocacy.
So I have a question. We had a conversation once with Khosrow and with a social psychologist, and Khosrow was saying how kindness has now become his second nature. He's doing it more and more and more. And we were having this great conversation, and then the psychologist says, I agree with everything you've said about kindness except for one thing. Kindness is not your second nature. It's your first nature. Mm-hmm. What we've done is we've defaulted to anger and frustration and contempt and that. And once we default to it, then we choose it. It becomes our second nature. That was his take on it. So our first nature, as you say, we're all meant to be kind, right? So how do we get people, this is a sincere question, how do we get people to they've been defaulting for so long with that anger. They've been choosing that over their first nature of kindness. In your estimation, again, what is one of the best? What do you think are some of the best ways to switch that default so it's turned off, so to speak?
Yeah, the anger switch.
Yeah.
The first thing is just to witness.
To witness.
Yeah.
Okay.
To witness the feeling, because I
recognize. Stop and recognize.
Yeah. The key, and actually I shared this in our last podcast, is we are not our thoughts and we are not our emotions. And oftentimes we think that messenger is a dictator. We think, I feel this, so I have to act on this. And the truth is we don't. We can witness. It was kind of like the boy with the kindness coin in his pocket, is we can witness and just recognize. It's kind of like laying in the grass as a kid. And looking up into the sky and watching the clouds come by. There's a phenomenal research study that actually there's been a couple done now that show that most emotions last 90 seconds. There's a 3 to 6 second uptake of the initial emotion, and then they last in our bodies for about 90 seconds. And if we can spend that 90 seconds just watching, kind of like a cloud, the emotions come into view. We see them. Some are fluffy and white. Some look like storm clouds. But if we can just watch as they float by and out of view, then we can say, okay, I recognize you. I even honor you, that you're bringing a message to my heart, an important message. I'm not going to suppress. I'm not going to be aggressive. Instead, I'm going to be expressive, and I'm going to make the choice for me. I'm not going to let the emotion make the choice for me.
Which lends back to one kind act a day. You have to be deliberate. So you're validating some of the feelings that we've had about, what it is we're trying to accomplish. So thank you. Yeah, you're teaching me right now, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. In one of our programs with Counterfeit Emotions, we do pornography recovery, and we use what's called the whole model. And the first step is witness. The W is witness. The second is harmonize. Is spend the 90 seconds either breathing, taking a walk, doing something that says, okay, I can just sit in this emotion without taking any action, and I can harmonize back to my true self.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next one is open the mind. Like, okay, why is this a trigger? And it's fascinating. The Dalai Lama, I absolutely love the Dalai Lama. We talked about, maybe this next summit,
That'd be great.
Getting the Dalai Lama to speak, that would be absolutely incredible. But he talks about the unattachment. He talks about, in Buddhism, that's one of the core principles is the idea of detaching or unattaching from our expectations, our titles, our, whatever we put worth into, unattaching from that and just witnessing, just being a witness to life, to emotion, to all of that. So that third step, the O, WHO, is to open our minds and say, why is this triggering me? What am I attaching to this event right now that I can detach from and remove that emotional response? Because triggers can be positive and negative. Mm-hmm. And that's when I've learned that concept. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought all triggers were bad. Like all triggers were the negative, but you can have a positive trigger as well. And you can do the same. You can just watch it. You can just say, okay, I wonder why I'm feeling this, but opening the mind. And then the next step is to lead our lives, step out of that victim mindset, and become a victor by changing the way we think. And this goes back to kindness and gratitude, is that L step, the lead, says, instead of asking the question, why is this happening to me? I can ask the question, why is this happening for me? And all of a sudden see that life is a kindness. Everything we experience is for our good. It's not happening to us. It's happening for us. That this conversation is a blessing, that everything, including the pain, is for our good. And when we see that this whole life is one massive kindness.
So I don't know if you know who Jenny Taylor is. She's become one of my heroes recently. And she was on a podcast and she made a statement. She was on the Gentleman Project of all things.
Oh, I love the Gentleman Project.
And she made this statement that has stuck with me. And I think I've quoted her 10,000 times. She says, people often tell me everything happens for a reason. And she says, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And she was a little bit stronger in how she stated that. But she says, but I do believe that because of my faith, I can make something happen. How did she say it? Because of my faith, I can make reason out of everything that happens. And that, I think that's kind of what you're talking about. I can take everything that happens and make something good out of it. Right? Is that what I'm learning?
And maybe even a step beyond that is not make something good out of it, but realize it is good.
Yeah.
Just inherently, including pain.
Yeah.
Including the hard emotions that we don't like, that we want to exile out from ourselves, including all of that, including the pain, including the maybe trauma in our lives, that all these things are for our good. And that everything, including the hard, is a kindness.
Don't you believe, though, that at some point in time, that even those pains and those difficulties and those hardships and everything that come to us, at one point in time, whatever the lessons are that I learned and however I grew out as a result, it no longer belongs to me. I need to now share that with others. It doesn't belong to me anymore.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I grew up in what I oftentimes refer to as a dysfunctional home. My mom and dad divorced, and we were on welfare, and there were things, and there was lots of things that I had to learn as a result. But then as I grew and I had opportunities to serve and to be with young men and young women in their informative years, I really felt like those experiences helped me to be able to help them more. And so then what was a challenge, what was a difficulty, and what was something I would have never wished on my worst enemy is now a cherished blessing to me, because I'm now able to help somebody as a result. Yeah. And I'm grateful that I went through whatever experience I went through, because of the help that I can offer. My wife and I were talking about this the other day, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I got to thinking, as I look back in my life, most of my anxieties had nothing to do with do we have enough? Are we going to make a living? Am I going to be okay? Is most of my anxieties had to do with, are my kids okay? Are my friends okay? And what about, my this situation with this particular person? And my anxiety had more to do with other people than it did with myself. And so I've kind of come to the determination, I don't regret any of that anxiety if that anxiety helped me to help. I don't regret any of that anxiety.
It brought a message.
It brought a message.
Yes.
And so this is something I'm just kind of coming to my own awakening on over the course of the last number of weeks. But I just feel like those challenges in the past, they don't belong to me anymore. They were meant to be shared, and they were meant to be given away so that I can help others.
That's the third step in the transcendence ladder. Is the first step is I'm a victim.
Right.
Life is happening to me. The second step is I'm a victor. Life is happening for me. And the final step in the transcendence ladder is life can happen through me. And instead of saying, why did this happen to me? Or even why is this happening for me? We can say, how can this happen through me? How can the trials that I've experienced, the pain that I've felt, even the anxiety, the fear, how can I be a blessing to others and move from victor to vessel?
Wow, that's good stuff. I'm learning a lot here. I need to come do this every week.
Let's do it. We'll just have a regular show, the Curtis and Curtis show.
Curtis squared is what we'll call it.
The Curti.
There you go. That is plural for Curtis.
Plural.
It's better than Curtis's.
It's way better than Curtis's.
I'm learning a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people tap into One Kind Act a Day? Where can people learn more about the foundation, about just kindness and the programs you're doing, whether it's for the prison or for the corporations or schools, or the summit, which I'm so excited for next year. That is going to be amazing.
We're going to have you speak next year, so we're excited about that.
Can't wait for that.
And we're really grateful for that. We made that public now. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be able to talk about that. When people ask me that question, there are two things that I like to say. Number one, go to www.thepowerofkind.org. So thepowerofkind.org. On our website, we're trying to make our website a repository for really great information. If you're a government agency and you want to talk or you want to find resources, we hope that you can find that on our website. If you're a school, we hope that you can find it on our website. Same thing with an individual, a mom or a dad who just has some questions about how can I engage my family? What can I incorporate into my home? What are some of the things that we can do? We hope that we're going to be able to provide information so that you can take that. That website is growing virtually every day. We're adding more to it. It'll probably become somewhat unwieldy, but that's okay because we really want it to be that kind of a repository for really great, good information. If people want to learn about kindness, we want this to be the subject matter expert for kindness. What we know that we're getting a lot of people who come and visit our website, and then they'll reach out to us through the Pledge of Kindness. Take the Pledge of Kindness if you want. We really encourage that because then that allows you to receive on a Monday and a Friday an email from us that gives you a quote and then just a little prompt. We have a really crazy, unusually low unsubscribe rate. Who unsubscribes from kindness, right? So it's like 0.1% of people that unsubscribe from these emails. And some of the best feedback we're getting comes from these emails that we send out. I love this quote. Did you think about this one? Or this quote really helped me today. This came at just a perfect time. It couldn't have come at a more perfect time for me. And so we get a lot of feedback on those quotes. So take the Pledge of Kindness. It gives you an opportunity to receive those. So we know that people will reach out to us and they'll engage with us and they'll say, hey, can my company become involved? Or can I become an ambassador here? Can I volunteer there? But we also know that there are a lot of people who are coming to our website and they're gleaning what they need, and then they go away and we'll never hear about it. And we're just fine with that. We know of schools all over the country who've come to our website and they've reported back to us later, hey, we learned this from your website. We engaged our students. We incorporated some of the things that we learned, and we did it all on our own. We didn't ask for your help. But look at the results, and we are thrilled by that stuff. So we know that we're getting a lot of people who come to our website. They'll come and they'll go, and we'll never know that they were there, and that's fine with us. But then so the website is a great way to go. The second thing that I would say is this, and it goes back to what you suggested and taught in the very beginning. That kindness is in every single one of us. If you were to ask me, where would I go? Yeah. The first place I go is to me. And I would look inside me and I would say, what can I do on a day in, day out basis to make kindness a part of my life and to bring kindness into life? What can I do? The first place I go is me. And that's one of the things I really like about the example that Cosgrove set in starting this whole organization. He didn't say something needs to be legislated. He didn't say somebody needs to do something. And he didn't throw up his arms and say, what can I do? There's nothing I can do about this. The fact of the matter is, if we're all willing to look inside ourselves, likely what will occur will be far more powerful than anything they'll glean from my website. I want you to go there. I want everybody to go there, but because that power will come from within, and then that decision will be made from within, and then it'll occur. And the real beauty about it is it doesn't have to be monumental. You don't have to start your own non-for-profit organization. You can smile at an individual. Too many stories to tell about what happened to a person on a particular day because someone smiled at them. You can write a note to somebody. And again, too many stories about when that note arrived was at the exact moment when they needed it most. You can bring a plate of cookies. You can make a phone call. And again, too many stories about. And so it could be just the smallest of things that are monumental in the lives of the people who were the recipients of your seemingly small acts of kindness. So go to the website. Yeah, please do. But look inside, because right there, you're going to find a myriad of ways in which you can, as I said, amplify, advocate, and exemplify the cause of kindness out in the world.
I love that. And that leads perfectly into my final question.
Okay.
There's one emotion that can't be counterfeited, and that's peace.
Right.
Where does Curtis Bennett find peace?
It's such a beautiful statement. You told me that you made that statement to me months and months ago, that it's the only thing that can't be counterfeited. And I thought to myself, I want to challenge that a little bit. And you know what I found out? You're right. You're absolutely right. It cannot be counterfeited. It just depends on where. The only thing that I think is dependent is I often say that authentic kindness breeds authentic kindness. Okay. Fictitious kindness brings fictitious kindness. Okay. And it's the same thing, I think, with authentic peace breeds authentic peace. The government tries to bring us peace by saying they're going to enact this law, or they're going to bring these taxes, or they're going to do these things. You know, I never feel any better because of it. Never. I just don't. I just don't. It depends on where that source of peace comes from. And so where do I find peace? I find an immense amount of peace in my convictions that are related to a higher power. I believe in God. I believe in Christ. I am a Christian by faith. I am a disciple of Christ. And I find an immense amount of peace in that, an immense amount of peace, because that faith leads me to my family, which is also an immense source of peace for me. Mm. There's the scriptural injunction, if you love me, keep my commandments. And then there are people who say, well, if you broke a commandment, then you must not love God. I disagree. Okay. I disagree wholeheartely, because then all of us are in that same boat. Yeah, okay.
We're all there.
And it is supposed to be the highest form of love, or the reason why we keep the commandments is because we love God. My mother grew up in a home that was Baptist, and she said that, as I recall, that they were afraid of God. Okay. Mm. Okay. I don't lurk in the corners and the dark shadows of my home waiting for my kids to trip up so I can exact some kind of a punishment on them. That's not the way God works. It just isn't.
Not at all.
And that's not the way parenthood is. And then I keep the commandments because I'm afraid of God. I keep the commandments because I want the blessings. Okay. Well, the highest form, way highest form, is because I love God. I think someday he and I maybe get to talk about this. Maybe we'll all get to talk about this, that an acceptable second place for keeping the commandments of God is because I love my family. I think that's acceptable because I think family is divine.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't surprise me so much that I find so much peace in my family. I find peace in God, but I do find peace in my family as well. And then all of the Joseph Smith made a statement where, and I hope I can quote him, but he said that we can have faith when we know that the course that we are pursuing is acceptable to God. Okay, family makes it acceptable. Okay, when I'm pursuing family for the right reasons, I think, and so does love of God. I think that brings me an immense amount of peace. When the world is trying to offer me a counterfeit, and it just isn't there. I hope I've answered the question, but I just find an immense amount of peace there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
And thank you for spreading kindness.
Thank you.
Because that's exactly what the world needs.
And thank you for helping to amplify and advocate and exemplify that message. You're doing a great job yourself. So thank you.
Thanks, Curtis. And thank you for joining us on this journey to live your most authentic life and find that one emotion that has no peace. Until next week, live authentically.